Hey, good morning. Got quiet all of a sudden like it's time to get started with business. We will call this meeting to order. This is the Scott County Fiscal Court business meeting for February 9th of 2024. It's hard to believe that it is February 9th, and the sunshine makes us all want for the spring to hurry up and get here. So if you all would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it very much. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. With that said then, Ms. Hamilton, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hostetler?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Foreman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison?
Here.
Mr. Pratt?
Here.
Mr. Livingston?
Here.
Mr. Culbertson?
Here.
Judge Covington?
Present. Very good. First item of business is to consider the minutes from our previous meeting. Any questions or comments regarding those minutes as presented? Motion from Mr. Corman, second from Rob Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, the transfers as presented via email. Questions or comments regarding those transfers as presented?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler. Second from second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Bills and hand checks as presented. Questions, comments? Motion. Kelly Corman with a motion.
Second.
Second from Mr. Pratt. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let the record reflect that Mr. Corman, Mr. Wallace, and Ms. Rebecca Johnson completed their continuing ed training units. So kudos to you all. Appreciate that. Now, number 8, Planning Commission reappointment. This is Mary Singer. Mary served, I believe, one term and would be reappointed on your all's approval. I think she does a very good job and is very engaged. Questions or comments?
I've heard the same comments. I'll make a motion.
Motion from Mr. Corman, second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Hamilton, could you share the clerk's office surplus list?
There was some miscellaneous office supplies and a file cabinet and monitor stand.
Questions or comments? Would there be a motion to approve? Motion from Mr. Wallace, second from Mr. Ellison. Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I'm going to ask Mr. Cam Culbertson to read Resolution 24-05, Fire Department Policy.
Yes, sir.
And this kind of came to life due to a couple of recent requests, and just similar to, I guess it's state statute that gives authority for law enforcement to buy their handgun when they retire. I think the helmet is a significant piece of equipment that our firefighters identify with, and it's a personal thing. So I'm going to ask Cam to read it, and then we'll have any questions or comments.
Excuse me. Scott County Fiscal Court Resolution number 24-05. A resolution of the Scott County Fiscal Court, Scott County, creating a policy to authorize the sale of used firefighter helmets. Whereas pursuant to KRS 67.0802, the county may sell its personal property. Before selling its personal property, the county shall make a written determination setting forth and fully describing the personal property, its intended use at the time of acquisition, the reasons why it is in the public interest to dispose of it, and the method of disposition to be used. Personal property may be sold for its appraised fair market value or a greater amount if the property is valued at $5,000 or less in an independent appraisal made by a county's officers or employees using a nationally published valuation of property based on the most recent edition of the publication. And whereas from time to time the Scott County Fire Department desires to sell used helmets of former firefighters to the former firefighters or their families with the income from the sales to be used for the purchase of new firefighter equipment. Now therefore be it resolved this 9th day of February 2024 by the Scott County Fiscal Court, upon consultation with the Scott County Fire Department Chief, the Judge Executive is hereby authorized to sell used firefighter helmets to former firefighters or their family members. Said helmets should be sold for the fair market value of purchasing a new fire helmet, less depreciation due to use over time caused by wear and tear. Sales of each firefighter helmet shall be documented in writing, which shall include a written description of the firefighter helmet, its intended use at the time of acquisition, the reasons why it is in the public interest to dispose of it, the name of the purchaser, and the method of calculating the fair market value. Done this 9th day of February 2024.
So just to wrap your head around, a new helmet cost is approximately $400. They have a lifespan of 10 years. After 10 years, they have to be decommissioned, so to speak. So if you divide that $400 up over 4 years or 10 years, and then you prorate it, that's the fair market value, in my opinion. Would anybody have any comment to that? Make sense to everybody? Would there be any other questions or comments? Motion. Second. Mr. Livingston with the second. Any other questions or comments?
I think it's a great idea. I do too. I just wish we didn't have to charge them for it.
Yeah.
I wish we'd give it to them.
Well, but I think this is the appropriate piece. I do, and I respect the sentiment, but sometimes they might leave with 5 years left, but there's just too much variable there. So
I understand.
Yeah.
Cam's got to keep us in the guardrails.
Yes. So we
This
have
way they
a
don't have to come back to you every time they want to do it.
yeah.
Take my chair, but I'll get ready.
So with that
Customary to
said,
take these little-
we're
these little
we've
name
got a
tags.
motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any
Got your
opposed? Motion
print.
passes. Next item, lease renewal extension office. After meeting and hearing last week the proposed expansion of the extension office and their desire, the Ag Extension Board's desire to request a lease extension with this fiscal court at the site out there at Brooking Park. Cam shared a draft lease agreement with you all, extending that out another 50 years, and I would support this. Are there any questions or comments with the lease agreement as presented? Motion from Mr. Hostetler.
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Jones. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll now move to Jeff Mudrack, EMS new hires. Chris Runyon is here with us.
Good morning, Judge Magistrates. I'm pleased to recommend 3 new employees in the EMS department. The first is Emma Morrison as a full-time EMT effective February the 12th at $13.09 an hour. The second one is Cameron Durham. In the email I said that she would start at $13.09 an hour as well, but there was a job we could give her credit for, so she'll start at $13.46 an hour. That'll be on March 4th.
Thanks.
And then one part-time hire, Christopher Dowdy as a part-time EMT, starting March 4th at $11.48, which is the part-time rate. So those 3 recommendations for you.
Questions or comments? Motion from Mr. Wallace, second from Mr. Ellison. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. I'm going to beat Rick to the question. What's that do with our current staffing?
In EMS, they'll be fully staffed
Fully staffed.
when they all actually begin work on March 4th. So,
All right.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. Fire department new hire.
Okay. We are pleased to recommend the appointment of David Skinner as a firefighter. That'll be effective February 19th at $15.68 an hour. Was a career firefighter with the Georgetown Fire Department, so we're glad to have him added to our team. And this will bring the fire department to being staffed one short.
Still have one left.
One left, yeah.
And you're still doing due diligence on a couple other candidates.
Yeah. We have an applicant right now that we're going to be talking to, and we're just waiting to see if anybody else applies. So,
But to be able to get that type of experience, Mr. Skinner is fantastic, and
absolutely.
That's excellent hire.
Okay.
Questions or comments? Motion from Mr. Hostetler. Second from Mr. Livingston. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, can I ask you a question? So it seems like every time we have a meeting, we're hiring new people. Are we having that much turnover? Or, I'm not understanding what's going on, I guess.
Well, that is what I was calculating right now was a turnover stats. We do, and I was just talking with Chris Runyon about his turnover. Probably EMS is one area where we have a significant amount of turnover. During the year of COVID, we only had 60 departures, which is understandable. Nobody left jobs typically during that period in 2021. But it's hovered usually around 30% in that department in EMS. And, some turnover is healthy. I mean, about a 10-15% turnover rate is healthy. But he's about 6 positions high, 6 losses high. And I think it's just, we have some people that are going back to school to continue their education, and we have some people who are leaving for other better paying positions, and I can't fault them for that too. So
was it before we had talked about there were people that were going to the ERs to work, and it pays much better, and just it's not a lot you can do about that.
Chris, would you like to address the court?
Chris works in the ER, right?
Good morning, Magistrate Judge. So one of the big things that we're seeing in EMS right now is a transition from 24-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts. There's a couple of agencies in central Kentucky that have already done that, and we have lost some people to that. Folks want to be at home. I feel like in the next 5 or 6 years, that's probably going to be a nationwide standard, just for safety reasons. The studies they've done show that after 16 hours, you just don't make as good judgments. You're not as safe behind the wheel. So we have looked at that model for our department. We actually did a poll internally, and it's about 50-50, actually 60-40, folks that are in favor of 12s and some that are not. They want to stay on the 24. They like that schedule. We put in there, in that poll, a question that if we did transition, would that cause you to leave our department? And 3 or 4 folks said, yeah, it would. They want to stay on the 24-hour schedule. The big difference in that schedule is it's quite an increase in payroll. We'd have to reduce the number of trucks we have on the road currently. The trade-off would be you'd be a lot more busy, but you get to go home at the end of your shift. But we would have to add a couple of folks. We'd also have to increase the hourly rate so the annual rate, their annual pay doesn't decrease. So they're working less hours for the same money. So that would be a proposition that Jeff and I would work on and bring to you guys some point in the future if we feel like that becomes a real problem with our retention.
Would you do 3 12s, like make them a 0.9, like the nurses do, where they work 40?
Yeah, well, the schedule we looked at kind of mirrors Jessamine County, where they work 3 days one week and 4 the next to get, and it gives them every other weekend off. So they work 3 days, they're off 4, then they work 4 days, they're off 3.
So with that schedule, does that involve overtime automatically? How's that work?
It would cut out their most of the included overtime they get now.
Scheduled overtime.
Yeah, scheduled overtime. What we would have to do.
Well, I mean, so the way it is today, that includes some overtime.
Oh yeah,
every time.
Their short week is 48 hours, so that's 8 hours of scheduled overtime.
Got you.
We would have to also cap overtime because their hourly rate's going to jump significantly if we transition to a 12-hour shift. So we wouldn't want folks working a lot of overtime because it would cost us a lot. But that's part of the reason. We're you know, Jessamine County, Boyle County, we're losing folks there because of that 12 hours.
So that's why you're saying that you would have to significantly raise their hourly rate just to make up for that overtime difference?
Yeah, just so their annual rate of pay wouldn't change. So nobody be taking a pay cut. They'd still be making their, whatever their annual salary is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for that input. Good question. Appreciate it very much. Any other questions or comments in regards? Kelly?
I just got to comment on HR since we're on that subject, but the wage and benefit analysis of whatever employee, I think that's great. I think it's really telling, and I hope that helps what we're talking about when people actually see, like, wow, this is a lot more than just my salary.
What your W-2 wage was, what then the cost of benefits and all those other required contributions. I agree with you, Kelly. I appreciate Karen and Jeff's work on that. And I mean, I think when, as an employee, you open that up, you see, hey, this is really the total piece of information about contributions for employment. So I appreciate that comment, Kelly, as well. You beat me to the punch. Going to move now, fire department proposal. We've talked about this, we put this pumper up for bid. And it stayed out for bid, and then we extended the bid, and we were contacted, Chief Baker, Chief Ward were contacted by fire department out of British Vancouver, Canada. And it's Cortez Island Fire Department in Canada. And what they essentially had to do to meet their procurement requirements is they had to put out a bid to match the specs of the available apparatus that we have. So what I'm asking your consideration for is for us to submit a bid for selling the apparatus for $200,000 US, and then the 6% commission owed to Brindley Mountain Fire Apparatus for a total of $212,000, and the stipulation that the buyer would be responsible for pickup and delivery of apparatus.
So I noticed you highlighted that, Chief, that they had originally put in there that we were to deliver it, right? That was a kind of a request, yeah.
Yes.
So, but they're good with. Have you had any more correspondence with them? Or?
I've actually received an email this week where they have somebody already set up to come get the truck from.
I think they have a heads up of what we're getting ready to submit to them.
Gotcha.
We would have driven it.
I mean, we'll volunteer.
Hey, we've had volunteers as well.
Running lights all the way down.
Hey, 2,700 miles. Good luck with that.
2,700 miles.
Take your own gas card. Motion, Jim.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler. Second from Mr. Pratt. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Will that be enough to buy those two brush trucks you all want? That 200-ish thousand?
I think so. Yeah.
So once this is closed, I'll ask Chief Ward and Chief Baker to come back, and we'll look at the timing, and then we'll go from there. But
Our biggest probably stall will be the availability of those two trucks. So
would those be F-350s?
Be Chevrolet.
Chevrolets? 3,500.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. We'll tackle that after this closes. Joe Broyles, good morning. Thank you for being with us. Joe Broyles is going to report a detention center quarterly report.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, magistrates. Got a couple of things for you this morning. The first one is the fourth quarter report from the jail. The first thing is the control room renovation was completed. It was completed on schedule and below cost of what they estimated in their bid. And so we've got still elevator controls that need to be moved. That's done by a separate contractor. So we have the money left in the original bid to certainly do that and still have money left over. I think we came in about, the original contractor came in about $22,000 below his estimate. And to move the elevator controls is going to cost about $6,000 or $7,000. So that should be complete this month. We're fully staffed. We've got 7 part-timers. One of those part-timers is waiting for a full-time slot to open up. Our inmate population today is 109 inmates, with 19 of them housed in other facilities. And then our monthly highs for October, November, and December are 137, 120, and 119. A couple of sidebar notes regarding the jail. The website has been down for about 3 or 4 weeks. And this is a domain issue. We had the domain for our website was actually in the name of or being controlled by our previous tech company that we used. And we've had some difficulties wrangling control of that back. We look like, or I think we're on a path to get that back where it should have always been, which is really in control of the county or in the control of the jail. So hopefully by the end of February, we'll have that back up. The other thing under sidebar issues is just kind of a summary on what the road crew did last year. The road crew started back up around April. We had some issues throughout from April to the end of the year with the road crew, which limited their availability to go out. But certainly they do more than just litter pickup. Litter pickup is probably the most visible thing that they do in the eyes of the community. But they also do work for Park and Recreation, sometimes the school system, sometimes the housing authority. So their time is divided. And during the winter months, they're able to focus a little bit more on litter pickup, which is great because that's when the litter is actually more noticeable. But as spring gets here, we'll be able to, their time will be divided just a little bit more. So in the 6 months that they were out working, and again, they started about April to the end of the year is about 8 months. Had some issues with them, which inhibited them, or I inhibited them from going out into the community. They got their heads back on straight, and we were able to get about 6 months out of them last year. Got a total of about 2,000 bags of trash, 78 tires, and 28 needles in that period of time. When we're up and running, normally we usually get about 700 bags or so, 700 to 800 bags of trash a month off of the roads. And I'll tell you right now, the roads in Scott County are not where I'd like for them to be either. We did the bypass 2.5, 3 weeks ago. We did it again this past week. It is just, you do it, it's just a continual issue. But we're trying to get those roads cleaned up, and right now is the time of year for them to really be hitting it. Any questions on the quarterly report?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm trying to understand what's actually happening here. Maybe you can enlighten me.
Yep.
So you've got 28 full-time staff. That's probably, in your tenure, it's probably one of the few times that we've not had a vacancy, or we've been looking for people. So that's great that you're fully staffed. And your budget for inmates out of the county was what?
$140,000.
Yeah, and today we're up to what?
I'd have to ask Michelle, but probably about 180, 185.
Okay, I think it's like around over 200.
Might, if it is over 200, it's barely over 200. It's just crested.
So we're fully staffed, but we've got 19 inmates, and by the way, this is 200. We're not all the way through the whole fiscal year. I'm trying to understand why there's so many inmates that are in other jails when we've got enough staff. You've had times you've been up, 130, 140. I don't think I remember being 150, but you've been over 140 before, and the staff's been the same number. Why are there so many people going to other jails?
So the staff has not been the same number. We actually had 30 full-timers for a few years until this year. And we had 2 positions cut to 28.
Yeah.
So that's impacted, in my opinion, our ability to take care of those larger numbers of inmates. So I've got that going on one side. The other issue that I have related to that is, as we discussed doing the contracts with these other counties, really 140 is about the threshold that I absolutely do not want to go over. Because our daily population goes up and down so fluidly, we could be at 140 or 145 one day, we could be at 160 the next day. So we've got to have, in my eyes, a little bit of a buffer. The buffer for me is keeping it really kind of about 130. And so, although I tried to do that, this past week we were in the 140s down at the jail, and that was with housing 19 of our inmates in another jail. So this past week, although this past week was a little bit of an anomaly because we normally don't get into the 140s, especially with housing these inmates in other jails. But we did get into the 140s this past week. We do with frequency over the course of the month. And if you like, I can print you out a report that shows you our high number every day that we get to.
Yeah, but didn't, like, a lot of them, don't they leave? Like, they're there one day and then before they get in front of the judge, and then they're gone.
Absolutely. They don't leave in one day.
Well, but they're not there a long time.
That's correct, yeah. So the reason for some of these spikes in population is because our judges have quotas that they order in from other counties, and those are inmates in other county jails, not that we're paying for, but they've got charges in other counties, and they also have a holder or a case going on in Scott County. So they're being held in another jail. The judge wants them face-to-face for whatever reason, not Zooming, and some jails don't Zoom. Fayette County is a really large jail that does not Zoom. So anyway, they're brought in 2, 3, 4 times a month, and that does cause a spike in the population that we have. And actually, the number a week and a half or so ago, when we were in the 140s, that was due to a court day that we had and some quotas that were brought in. That actually caused us to get to that really high number. Normally, on any given court date, we'll have about 10 or so quotas that are brought in, 10 or 15 maybe quotas that are brought in. So that is a little bit of the problem, is that we have these spikes throughout the month. Now, those spikes are temporary, absolutely. They last for maybe 4 days or so. The sheriff's office brings them in, and then as they can, they get them back out. But for me, for the safety and security of our facility, and with our 28 full-time positions that we have, I really don't want to get much past 130. And so that's what I try to do. And so the number that we have housed today is actually down, I believe, from the last quarterly report, because I think Mr. Ellison maybe brought up at the last, or somebody did, at the last meeting that I brought this to you guys, the quarterly report. It was asked about this at that time, and asked, is it possible to get that number down a little bit? And it is. Just if we're going to go down with it, I try to do it very incrementally and not have huge swings in sending 10 out, because again, our population levels go up and down so much. I try to incrementally send them out, and I try to incrementally bring them back in so that it's a little bit less ebbing and flowing.
I understand, and for Rick and myself and David and Kelly, who've been on here a long time, this is the most we've ever seen our budget as far as money being spent on out-of-county inmates, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around it about why there's so much money being spent.
In the past, I've been a little bit, in my opinion, harder on our staff, my staff at the jail, to just let those numbers get higher than what they are right now. And I've tried to temper that and tone that down a little bit with that 130-ish kind of threshold that I'm looking for, and really with the goal of not getting over 140. In the past, we've been up, and I don't ever want to reach this again, but we've been in the 160s, if you remember. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we were in the 160s at one point. So anyway, I think that's just too much for our facility and too much for our staff in the facility that we're in right now. So I'm trying to keep the number about 130-ish, or if we get to 130, that's when I'm looking, hey, I need to send one out, or I need to send a couple out. And if we can keep it below that, that's great. I think our average daily population is probably about 115 or so.
I think that's right.
But we do get into the 130s numerous times throughout the month. And I haven't looked at it, and it may be CODA related, but I can tell you maybe a third of the month, a quarter of the month, we're in the 130s also. But then we drop back down. It's just, so anyway, I'm trying to balance
Chad,
it.
it's kind of one of those things. I mean, the balance of not building a new facility is that we've got to send them somewhere else and pay that price for sending them somewhere. You know, so it's kind of, I get where you are with historically, but I think we all are mostly in the camp, but we also don't want to be spending millions on another facility in another location and things like that. So, you know, that's going to be kind of the cost of doing that business. And it seems like by keeping the numbers low, we've had a lot less turnover, and our staffing has been more stable. So it's having a positive effect there too, I think. It feels like anyway.
It is,
I'm not an expert,
yes.
but so, you know, I don't know.
So Jared keeps a running tab for averages and monthly, and the 6-month average for what he saw just at the facility, not in other places, not just at our facility. Last 6 months was a 108 6 months average. That was Jared's calculation, just keeping a running tab. And then, you know, I'm going to echo what Master Ellison said as well. We do respect that we want to be good stewards of money, and we want to watch our budget. And I think we're all very conscious of that. But it's the give and take. I think we need to continue to look at, I know our sheriff's office, sheriff's department, they transport every one of those. Is that correct, Judge Rules?
Correct. Every one of the CODAs, yes.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
when we send them to other facilities under one of these contracts, then we usually transport. Sometimes the other facility will but we do those transports.
So you handle those in-house?
Yes.
And then those inmates that you kind of have described as keepaways, those are in that same bucket
Correct.
as well?
Yeah, we've always had a certain number. Going back in previous years, we're always housing a certain number of inmates in other counties because we've got 3 female cells, and it's easy to get people that don't get along. It's easy to accidentally or get them around each other when we don't want to get them around each other. The only option is the 3 female cells or put them in isolation. So same thing with the males. We've got a certain number of cells, and once they get into it with so many people, verbally or physically, then isolation's their only option. And as opposed to just putting them in isolation and letting them sit, we've always housed them in other facilities.
So, as we move forward in getting ready for our budget, do you feel like you can looking back at the last 6 months, have a better feel of what an estimate will be for next year's budget to house inmates like we've done this past year through contracts, to house inmates in other facilities? So you'll be able to navigate that and share.
Yeah, based on the past 8-9 months, I'll have a much firmer grasp on what we need in the budget. We actually raised that number this year. I think it was $110,000 the previous
It was
budget.
120, I think.
Maybe 120.
And
Yeah.
then it went to 140.
Yeah, but I know we raised it $20,000 or $30,000 this past year, but that's definitely going to have to be raised this coming year.
The other thing too is, you mentioned the 30 versus the 28, and 2 extra employees would cost us. We would still have to have the inmates in other counties. So 2 extra employees would cost us well over $200,000 a year. So staying at 28 with a comfort level of the numbers you've got, it's probably a wash as opposed to going to 30 and bringing more back in.
Yeah,
I've always a savings to the county. Actually.
I've always heard and thought that each one of our employees was valued monetarily, including benefits, at about $80,000 a position. So certainly, we can certainly agree $160,000 in savings.
Well, I'm not arguing about total benefits. My point is, it's probably a wash at the end of the day for 6 months out of the year on
Yeah, well,
that,
that's what you just said, really. I mean, it goes to what your point, David. I think you were figuring those two positions a total of 160,000, and that's kind of what this number we're kicking around. The other thing is, real quick, what's the CODA stand for?
So it's court ordered to appear, and that's court ordered obviously by the judge to appear.
Here.
Correct, yes.
A
It's
judge
our-
here, and so you got to go get them.
Generally speaking, it's the circuit judges. The district judges don't usually do it for whatever reason.
Ryan Pratt has a question.
I have a question, and
Yes,
I
sir.
might take Jeremy as well. So for these CODAs, we keep hearing, I've heard them say a lot of times that they send deputies out, wear and tear on the deputy vehicles, deputies off the streets going to get these CODAs. Would it be any savings to the county if can the jail go get them, or does it have to be SO? And would there be any savings to the county if we looked at somehow maybe the jail employees going and getting these CODAs, which would then leave officers on the street and the vehicles here?
We could go get them, and there are jails across the state that do that. We would just need the staffing, but our staffing costs are much less than the sheriff's department staffing costs, so that
I
might
just
be.
didn't know if that would be a potential savings if we looked at that in the next budget of, would it save the county money ultimately without sending, I don't know how many times the SO goes out and gets these CODAs and how much time they're off the streets and.
So let me speak to one thing, one item that would be a consideration for both jail and sheriff's office. Captain Nettles and Sheriff Hampton and I and JR have talked about, because of requirements, you cannot have a female and a male in the same vehicle in the back seat. What was shared with me was that, should we look at, because of this, it's just a requirement. It's what we're doing. Should we look at, finding like a Sprinter van and having it upfitted so that you could safely transport and segregate as well? So that's a consideration for the budget.
So we've already got that van at the jail
Yeah.
that separates the back of the van into two separate non-accessible compartments, and that's what we do. If we have a transport that requires male and females, we segregate them that way. If we have an inmate, again, the keepaways, that we don't want an inmate sitting right next to another inmate in the back of the van, we can segregate them using the way this van is set up.
But that was tied to the quotas. And
No, I think that's just something we could look at maybe to save money, is if we could use the jail staff, and then also just the time that the sheriff's officers now off the streets in other counties picking up these prisoners when they could be here protecting our community. So
Captain Nettles, most of the time, though, are you taking you're not taking a patrol deputy out of a
Regular patrol shift?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
You are taking a regular patrol shift.
We try to do all of our overtime, all of our transports with the least amount of overtime
Okay.
possible. So it is during their shift hours, and they should be on patrol.
Okay. And then how many do we have on a shift at a time?
A minimum of 4.
Okay.
Could you have a situation to where, and I mean, we really need to talk about this offline because we can talk about this all day. But could you have a situation where you hire Leosis, retired, part-time?
They're hard to find.
Okay.
It's the same issue we have with filling with school resource
SROs, yeah.
I mean, like, I'd like to see some data on like how much time these our on patrol deputies are spending out of the county. I mean, you don't have it.
We're actually working on a report.
Yeah,
right
and then
now on that.
see if we could save money by maybe hiring some jail staff, which are cheaper than SOs, to do some of these transports.
We'll look at it. We sure will.
Just a thought.
Just a thought. Do you have a thought on that? We can't sit up here and talk about running your department.
I appreciate that, and I'm certainly here to help the community and help you all as much as I can. I'd be for it, as long as, again, I'm not in a position of the SO of having to take our current staff away from their current duties to do the transports. I think that is a little bit of a good fit, actually, as close as we are in dealing with the inmates. I think it almost cuts another step out of it involving the sheriff's office. And as a citizen here, I'm with Mr. Pratt. I'd much rather have the deputies here patrolling our roads, responding to calls here in the county, as opposed to running inmates to wherever.
So,
So
Captain
I would
Nettles,
be for it, Mr.
do
Livingston.
we ever use any court security workers to transport?
We just recently started doing that. We use some of our part-time certified court security workers.
That was because I'd been in that conversation. I just want to confirm that. I knew that we were
We
doing
just want to make
that.
sure we keep their hours under their
Yeah.
hours months that they give them. We just actually just sent two a couple days ago to Fulton County.
Okay. But we'll talk and then we'll try to navigate it. Any other questions, Mr. Jones?
Judge, it was brought to my attention by one of the part-timers. So I guess the full-time staff, when they go to training, we have a
Yeah.
incentive or something, I guess?
Yeah, let me clarify that, and we'll just, if y'all want to take it up now, we'll take it up now. There is an incentive program that we put together to try to just be a positive thing for retention and recruitment for full-time staff at EMS and at the jail. It is KRS statute that law enforcement and fire receive a training incentive, but it's only full-time. I had a request from a long-time part-time employee at the jail if we would consider extending that training incentive to the part-time employee. Well, if you do that, then you also have to do it for EMS. Then you would have to also consider it for law enforcement and fire. And then the other consideration is, what is the threshold for hours worked during a course of a year that would make them eligible to get that? If you got somebody that's just working, a shift a month or a couple shifts a month, that's a question to me that
Or prorate the incentive.
or you
maybe.
could prorate it. With all that said, it's hard for me to sit here and when I'm asked that question initially, I said, well, they're doing the same training, but they're being compensated. They're on the clock when they do that training. That's a requirement. But when you look at the fire department and law enforcement, it's by KRS that they only get it through full time. It would be difficult for me to navigate differentiating that with if you do it for one, you got to do it for all, and that would be a considerable budgetary consideration for me.
I would just say there's also plenty of opportunities to become full-time.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Just listening to the judge talking, that's what I was thinking too. It's,
There's
why not
plenty of
go
opportunities
full-time?
to be full-time and
Yeah.
you can jump right in. With
Yeah.
that said.
I'm grateful for our part-timers.
I'm grateful too.
But they're
I
kind of
didn't
making
know,
the choice
I didn't know
not
that they
to.
got paid too while going to
Oh,
the
yeah,
training.
yeah.
So
All
that,
trainings are paid. Yeah.
so
Just to, I've kind of shared that now. I've been doing some research. We've talked about it. This came up about a month or so ago to me by request. Is there anybody want to make a motion in regards to that?
Well, let's. I don't think we should listen. If we're going to look at it in the budget, I'd be scared to death to vote on a policy right
I'm
now.
but what I'm
I
doing
understand.
is that bringing it to you all. What's the pleasure of the court? Does the court want to?
I think we got to set a lot of parameters if we even go
I
down
agree.
that path.
yeah.
I hope you understand why I'm saying
I
this.
understand what you're saying.
I'm one vote. Is this something that you all would like to get a little bit more information about and then talk about in a budget conversation?
I guess we should always talk about it and think about it, but right now I would not be for.
Well, that's all I said. Does anybody want to make a motion now?
How many people were talking? Like, I know the jail has 7. I don't know how many part-timers.
If you do it by what Joe Pat is wanting to do, it's 2 different people, and they don't work.
Let's rephrase that, Karen. What I said I would look at. And my thing was, well, could you look at, because I have chewed on this with Karen and Jeff quite a bit, and I talked to Darren about it as well, trying to be equitable. But could you set it, well, if you have a part-time employee that works X hours on a yearly basis that's been with us 36 months or more, then they would be eligible for that incentive or a prorated piece of that incentive.
Yeah.
So let us try to hammer a little bit on it, and then we can talk about it in the budget and then make a consideration from there. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Sounds good.
we're all on one
How'd
page.
that bus
Thanks,
feel?
sir.
Yeah. So, Darren, thank you for being here.
Thanks, I
Anything
appreciate
else?
it. Yeah, I've got one other just real quick thing regarding our discussion last year about the partnership with Grant County and the regional jail issue. Several of the staff have asked me to ask you all whether that is the book closed on that? Because it kind of looms over the jail and is kind of soul sucking for the spirit down there as that continues to kind of hang over. Is that something that I can tell them?
When we elected to go with contracts,
Okay,
and you said that we didn't need a new jail now,
correct.
I think that put that to rest for the time being.
Okay.
We haven't talked about it since then.
But like
I mean,
the
there's been no
contracts were what
discussions.
were in lieu of that consideration.
Okay, so I can just let them know that to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief that it's kind of at least in the background or history for right now.
I'm not, I don't have any consideration
Okay.
of that, but I would ask you, you bringing up Grant County, and we're going to LaRue County, we're going, and that's a considerable distance.
Hold on.
From what I understand, there's a new jailer at Grant County.
There is, yeah.
I would ask you to consider looking at, could we do some type of pilot by sending a small number to Grant County, seeing how that works on a contract basis, and then if you got more comfortable with the situation, then we could look at expanding that or such on only on a contract.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started talking about having these multiple contracts to address that, over 130, that put that to rest for the time being to me.
Okay, I appreciate it. In regards to that specific point, as long as they're under federal oversight, I think it's a concern for me. I think it's a liability that we're sending inmates to facility that remains under the federal. Once they come
But
out from under that,
you know the circumstances of that federal oversight, and
well, was it an inmate death?
it was over a decade ago.
But
then,
it was an inmate death, right?
I can't speak to that on that why it continues.
Right.
But that federal oversight was over a decade. That incident, and I'll clarify by email, but was over a decade ago, and their safety record. You and I both know, regrettably, dangerous things can happen at any jail.
Of course.
I think we had 2 OD in our jail not that long ago.
That's right.
And you can't control every single thing that happens. It's just life.
Right.
And you can put the best procedures in place like you have. You have, very strong SOPs. You all do. Do your due diligence, but it's not possible. And you and I both know that it's not possible to control every single thing that happens. So going back to that, that federal oversight, the requirements they put on that facility with on-site medical staff and all those type of things was very, very overreaching in my opinion. But I can get an update on the federal oversight, and if there's anything changed with that, and I'll communicate. All I was trying to do is, if we're driving to LaRue County and there's another facility that is closer that has beds available, being a good steward of tax dollars, I think it's our job to continue to look at those options. And then we're talking about keeping deputies off the road. A deputy could be at Grant County in 30 minutes and back in 30 minutes. And that's the only reason. But the number one thing would be safety for all. So I agree with that on you, on your comment there. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So on that same conversation, Darren, and I appreciate this too about the liability, but the liability, if they're in the Grant County detention centers, is that, and something happens, or in the LaRue County, if something happens to an inmate that ultimately, I guess they belong to us, but we've got them contracted up north or out west, where's that liability fall if it happens in their jail?
I think it falls on both of us.
I don't
We
know
can-
that
We can
answer,
get
right?
sued anytime for basically anything. I mean, somebody
Well-
can sue us for anything. But if we're putting the inmate in that situation, that's why I'm really careful about the jails that we send our inmates to. I really try to send them to what, in my opinion, are good, safe jails, safe environments for them to be
So
in.
Rick, I'll get that answered by Kate.
Yeah, because I agree with Darren on the liability, but I don't know where that falls.
No,
I mean, I just don't see how I guess we can kick this all day long, but if they're not safe, then how is the state allowing them to run in the first place? Under the, so I know you might have a higher standard, and that's fine, and we appreciate that, but, and I dare say I can't figure out a way that we would be liable for another facility in another county not running something properly or something happening to an inmate there, because they could be there with or without our blessing, and have that. So I think I'd be interested to see what the lawyers would say about that liability issue. But
I'll check with Keiko and share that. So Darren, thank you for
Yes,
all
sir.
you do.
Yeah,
Much
thank you very much.
appreciated.
Thanks.
Next item, before we move forward there, storm shelter project. Mike, can you help us, give us just a short 1 minute update on why the bomb squad had to be called to Georgetown College?
Absolutely. So professor and a graduate assistant were doing random inventory at the chem lab at Georgetown College. Opened up a cabinet and found a roughly 1 gallon container of what was supposed to be a liquid, but was more like 60% crystal, 40% liquid. The label said "an ether." It wasn't even, it was not a professional label. It was just somebody put a sticker on it that said "an ether." Essentially, that ether became a peroxide, which is way off into organic chemistry that you don't care about. But once it made that transition, it was a highly sensitive explosive, sensitive to shock, sensitive to temperature change, sensitive to pressure change. We reached out to Lexington Bomb Squad to ask whether they would be able to assist us with moving this. They said, "We don't know what that is. Let us make a phone call." Again, making a long story shorter, people from ATF said this is extremely dangerous, to the point that Lexington wasn't even willing to take it back to their facility to detonate it. They wanted someplace within a mile of the location to get rid of it. So put the guys in the big padded suits, went up and got it, put it in their trailer, and then we detonated it at the rock quarry just a couple minutes later. But
Safely and soundly.
Safely and soundly, but they told me that it was the equivalent of having 3 pounds of plastic explosives that went off when they.
So the video you shared was
Yeah.
pretty pronounced. But kudos to the chemistry professor for calling in and trying to keep everybody safe and,
Right.
and going from that. But what Mike's here to do is essentially. Mike's been doing work on the storm shelter project for Stamping Ground. First of all, we've been also working. JR and I have met a few times, and Mike has as well out on Lyle Road. That would be a target location for the second one. But we would like to request to put out to bid a single storm shelter. Dimensions is 10 by 48.
Right.
And he's got the specs from neighboring
Yes.
county that's done this.
Right. So I have to start out by apologizing because doing my research when we started this project, there's only one company that manufactures this. So never even dawned on me that we would have to do going out to bid and, RFPs and all that. If there's only one person that can give us the product, I thought it was single source. But after reaching out to Fayette County and other counties that have gone through this, they do have to, go through the RFP and the bid process. I had Fayette County Emergency Management send me their most recent package, and I told the judge that I was going to send him the information, but the email was over 100 pages long.
So we're gonna reduce that and be a little bit more concise and specific, but still put it out to bid, and hopefully get this thing turned around pretty
very
quick.
specific bid specs, because it has to be FEMA certified. It has to have a minimum of a 12-inch concrete pad to anchor to. It has to be turnkey with ADA requirements. There's very few, if any, people that would be able to bid on that. So,
But I think we have to put it out to bid because there's more than one, and but we'll be concise about it and hopefully get it turned around and get the project going ASAP. Would there be a motion to approve? Motion. Second from Mr. Ellison. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Was this to run the advertisement?
This is to put it out to bid, yes. And Mike will get that.
Yeah,
I think we can do it on a one-pager and put it on the website, and then Stacy, and then we'll.
Do we have the locations yet? I know we talked about last
There's
Friday.
one in Stamping Ground at the EMS station on the very back property border.
But we're still working on Lyle Road.
They're still working on Lyle Road. Lyle Road is a challenge. We've been told no.
Right.
We had one alternate site that did not really meet the needs. That property owner has said he is working on another possible site right up there, but we'll have to share more information as we move forward.
Right. But one of the big pluses, if there are any, is that Fayette County did all of their shelters using FEMA mitigation money. So he gave me the information that would allow us to move forward on different projects using federal money and possibly putting more of these out there without using county funds.
But that only opens up after a disaster, right?
Yeah, but it's a disaster anywhere in Kentucky. So the windstorm last March would count. We're just about to open the Mayfield projects. There's a lot of options for us.
So we had a motion and a second. Did we vote on it? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll try to get that out, next week if we can. John Strom, thank you for being here. John is here on behalf of KYMBA. John has worked with them very closely. John has also nominated a member of their group that's part of the advisory group that we have. And John, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody giving me a few minutes of your time. I will try and be brief. As you know, I've been in front of you several times talking about the multi-use mountain bike trails at Lytle's Fork. That's still a little weird for me to hear because it's been skullbuster for us for so long, but at Lytle's Fork. And our organization performs hundreds of hours of volunteer effort, maintenance, construction, and ensuring that our trails remain in great shape for all the users out there. I'm here today to ask your blessing for a way that we can showcase these trails. We want to host a mountain bike race at Lytle's Fork on May 18th. Kentucky's fortunate enough to have a well-run mountain bike race series called the Bluegrass Mountain Cup, which officially started races in 2021. The Bluegrass Cup was founded by Josh Patton, who's a local Kentuckian. He's been running races since 2016, and he's the coach of the nationally recognized Lindsey Wilson College Mountain Bike Association, or mountain bike team as well. The Bluegrass Cup features multiple formats of races and brings riders in from all over the Commonwealth and the states surrounding it. Last year in 2023, they had 6 events that had 710 riders participate.
Total,
not at each event. No, sorry. 710 riders of all ages and skills. This could be a single rider who showed up. This can be couples. This can be groups of friends forming a team. This can be families. And I'm going to emphasize families. We get lots of those at these races. These races, using our economic data, generated an economic impact of more than $125,000 for the Commonwealth last year. In 2024, we expect the total race series to welcome more than 1,000 racers to the starting gate. I've personally raced, I'm not a racer, but I've personally participated in some of these races in various formats and have worked with Josh to host one of these races at one of our Kemba trails in Frankfort, Capitol View Park. I've always been impressed by the quality and thoughtfulness of how he puts on a race, how the planning experience ensures that the race goes smoothly, and how most importantly, it spotlights the local trails and the communities that maintain them. As this idea started to take shape, the Bluegrass Cup and Kemba Bluegrass started discussing it with other stakeholders in the area. We wanted to make sure that logistics made sense and that the other stakeholders were on board with it before we brought it to you to ask for permission to run it. I do want to be able to answer any questions you have with it, and we have had conversations with the horseback riding community. Roy is over here today. We've spoken with Georgetown Tourism. Lori's back here as well, and we have brought this to the advisory committee, largely with positive support for this idea. What does a race day look like? Because I'm sure that's going to be a big part of your consideration today. We want to have two styles of races that are kind of running at the same time. The first is a 6-hour endurance race, and that's kind of what it sounds like. And it's not my kind of race. It's kind of miserable, but people love it. You would start the clock. People would do as many laps as possible in 6 hours. And the winners would be the ones who completed the most laps. And at a certain point, they'd be pulling riders off the course when they've gone too close to the 6 hour to keep riding. The other one are your standard cross-country races. And those will be a set number of laps with categories determined by skill level, by demographic features, and those will be running at the same time. The course will be somewhere around 8 to 10 miles long, so we'd have plenty of room to put people on the trails there. We would be starting in the morning and would be running till about mid-afternoon when we'd have our podiums. We anticipate, based on other races that we've had, we would host between 100 and 150 participants. Now that is not 100 cars, that is 150 participants. Most of these people will ride together as a group. A lot of them will come as a family. You will have individuals driving, but they're not driving their rigs like you have going to other facilities. It'd be your standard family cars coming out to it. We've discussed options for parking and access with the stakeholders. We've begun talking about signage that would safely guide participants from the major roads back to the reservoir property. And we've talked to volunteers about directing traffic and even splitting traffic between the two parking lots that serve the mountain bike set of trails, putting maybe the participants on the north side off Gaines and putting the volunteers and the support crowd off of Skinnersburg.
So you'd communicate that to the participants
Absolutely.
And the volunteers?
Every single one of these races, you get multiple emails leading up to it with where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, what you can bring, what you can't bring, what the day's going to look like. Josh is exceptionally communicative to everybody involved, and Kemba would be as well. We've even talked quite a bit about putting signs out on the property we would be using to park with the horseback riding folks to make sure that those who aren't on social media, who aren't on the internet, know that there's an event coming on this day, so they have plenty of opportunity to maybe make other arrangements for just that specific day. We would start the race, like I said, in the morning. The parties would share the trails. We would bring people in to support and cheer for the riders. We could set up places around the trail for them to be able to access it easily and cheer their family members and their friends as they go around. We often bring out local food vendors like food trucks and beer providers to support it in the afternoon so people have a place to eat and have a good time. And at the end of the day, we celebrate with an awards ceremony where we have a podium. People get prizes, people get to celebrate with their friends and their teammates, and it really brings a community together, especially these endurance races, because people are there all day enjoying the community and enjoying the facility that you have here in Scott County. Based on our recent economic impact data, we estimate that this single-day race would have a one-time economic impact of more than $10,000 in non-race revenue for the county. That's hotels, gas, food, etc. We're not talking about your race fees. We're not talking about bike stuff. We're not talking about things like that. We're talking about money here to the county. But I think it would also generate other economic ripples because people are going to come to this race or who enter this race are going to want to come preview the course. So they're going to come before the race and ride it a time or two. And then I promise they're going to fall in love with the Skullbuster Trails and they're going to come back and they're going to ride it again and again because I know I do too. We really think this is an awesome way to showcase Lytle's Fork and to bring people in who may not know about it and show what an amazing outdoor recreation destination you have here in Scott County. So we're hoping you'll give us our blessing so that we can continue planning, we can start advertising for it. We're about 3 months out, and we need to get people on we need it on people's calendars. So
questions or comments, and I'm sure that any approval would require, documented submission of liability insurance and event insurance, a waiver signed by the participant.
Correct.
What am I missing?
Do we need to have a discussion on, because if we do this, which I think it's a great idea, what we don't want to do is filling it up with events that would impact the horse trails. And so do we need to, on a separate note, talk about limiting the scope or the quantity of events that are held out there each year?
I mean, it's something to discuss. You don't want to have excess usage.
Have there been other events that we?
But this is the only event.
The first one, right?
The
only other thing is
with it, you never know who else may be coming to us
Sure,
to ask,
yeah.
and we can't
It's
start
something to
picking
talk
winners.
about as we move forward.
Yeah.
The only other event that we get requests for are the Boy Scouts. And JR goes out there and mows the bottom, and the Boy Scouts go and stay all night and have a great time.
And I'm thinking specifically of this type of event.
Yeah.
Just so we don't get overrun.
The calendar is already very full in the race season. It's
Okay.
pretty hard to find other things. We do have a youth mountain bike league that does not have a team in Scott County yet, but is looking for one. And we have eyeball Skullbuster is maybe one day being a place where we could have what they call their adventure weekend that kicks off their season. But I do not see more than a couple of our events there a year. Frankly, we don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Roy, do you want to speak in regards to the horse?
Rob Russell, just real quick, I want to thank all of you guys for your stewardship of my tax dollars. Watching this morning, you're doing a good job. Yes, Dave brings up a good point. What going forward long term, how are we going to manage the events coming in? This is a good example of the kind of thing, which we as horse people welcome it. We've talked about it, and we've had a good partnership over the years, and it's doing very well. That's not the issue. One question it does bring, though, is the bicycle guys are extremely well organized and communicate with their guys well. We as horse guys are not as good at that. And the question is, how are we going to solve that problem going forward? Does tourism have a Facebook page? Does Parks and Rec? Or does Fiscal Court? How are we going to manage that going forward? And because there are going to be other users. We're starting to get a little pressure about hunting coon hunters out there, which is here lately we've been talking about. That's going to have to be dealt with.
We're going to have to share that and talk about that. So, this is just the cusp of what's going to be coming on. But what I leave you with is how do we want to create a page or whatever that has a calendar of events for everything that's going on out there going forward. And I think we asked the advisory board to kind of lead that up. And then
we're working on that. I'm vice chair. Temple can't be here days out of town.
Yeah, but thank you for your comments and always, being available to help.
Well, I was going to ask Roy to make those comments, not a question, Roy, but thank you. And I was even going to mention maybe Tim and Lori, if they've got comments on how we organize this. But one of the other questions I have for you is so this event, if you did it, probably you wouldn't horseback ride that weekend? Is that what you're saying?
There are on different sets of trails. Now, the horseback ride is more on the north side of the property, if that's fair, and the mountain biker is more on the southern side, but I'll let Roy speak.
It is different sets of trails. We're going to share the parking area. The Gaines Road parking lot, county gravel, we've talked about letting them use that, which is the north side of Gaines.
Right.
And the horses that particular day will use the south side next to the creek. And they'll put signage up telling people that. Now, there's going to be a horse guy show up and want to know what's going on. And so we'll try to do up signage and stuff. But that's what we've kind of worked out.
So how many, okay, well, it was just that coordination issue. That's what I was talking about. I didn't know if you'd just say, hey, we're not riding today, but that's not going to happen because everybody's not going to hear it.
We'll try to share it as much as possible.
Right.
We're going to do everything we can. We want the most people to know about this event as possible. I spoke with Lori yesterday about maybe sending out something to the neighboring landowners a little bit ahead just to say, we're going to have an event this day, just FYI. We want to give you some heads up that this is going on. We want to be very communicative. We don't want to operate in a vacuum and just kind of surprise, here's 150 racers. Yeah. That's not how we want to do this. We want to be good.
You were talking about signage. You mean along the routes getting you there? Or?
Correct. All above. We would probably talk about
most of the access.
I think he's also saying they're going to try to make an effort for our horse folks on their trails so that they know Because they're not on social media or whatever, is what I'm hearing, that they're going to, a few weeks or whatever before that.
Yeah, a few weeks
really
out
focus
before we
on
put a big
wherever your trailhead starts or your
signage
parking
out
lots.
there.
There's signage out
May
there. saying,
18th.
Right.
Do we have one of those bulletin boards out there that has the glass over
Well,
it? That we can
that's
post
that's
stuff
what the
on?
advisory board has talked about.
I mean, that's a temporary fix, but it could be something done pretty quick and easy.
Yeah, that's what
Just
the
some yard
advisory board's
signs,
talked
I
about
mean,
doing.
stuff
But we
you
can
stick in
put
the
yard
fine.
signs too. But what's been discussed by the advisory board is multiple signage, like what you're talking about, that shows what's going on.
And it's weird he brought up signage, because I was thinking about that this morning, that it'd be nice if we could go ahead and get signs made to lead people toward Lytle's Fork.
That's what the advisory board has been working on as well. So,
John,
question.
I know with all these people coming, would the organizer of the event be responsible for bringing bathrooms out there? I mean, I know there's lots of trees.
Well put. I believe we've already had conversations with Lori about we're building that into the support package as well. So
they'll bring them and they'll take
exactly.
them out.
We would be lying if we said we don't occasionally find a tree, but we're going to make sure that we're
What
operating in good
John-
decency.
What John has not shared, though, is that Lori will be the leading the pack in a pink tricycle on the mountain bike. She'll be like out of the first of the gate.
Are you doing
It does have a veil.
Are you doing
She'll be our pace car.
Are you doing the 6-hour endurance one? Is that what we can expect?
Any other questions? And would someone have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion for Mr. Pratt for approval.
David.
And
Second
what
from
was the
David.
date?
May 18th
May
is what
18th.
we're targeting right now.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Hey, Judge.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I was just going to ask, so how are you going to coordinate? You're going to go through the judge's office? We just voted to do this, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to have to keep shoving the information.
Yeah, we'll all coordinate that information.
Absolutely, and I'll share updates as we get closer. We're happy
And
to
I
do
just
that.
like the organizers to submit certificate of insurance and
100%.
and a draft.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
All that.
I mean, I know we haven't done a slide, but, the city has to do it all the time, like 5Ks. I was, look at their package. And that way you've got something standardized.
Lori, can you help me with that?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
We do about 8 races like this a year, I think, and he's got everything we'll need to make y'all feel comfortable. So thank you all very much.
And he
We look
does
forward to
have the
showcasing your
Godfather's
property.
number, doesn't he?
He's got the Godfather's number. All right, next thing, just a real quick, thank you, Toyota, just on behalf of the fiscal court. $1.3 billion investment to support the battery electric vehicle infrastructure and manufacture at the plant. It's this type of long-term investment that will give us stability to know, hey, we're going to have jobs there. They're going to have that revenue stream that comes to us from that OLT, and just very, very grateful. But it's also a testament to the community and the staff that we provide, along with the region and the state. There's staff from 80 counties there, but they're confident that our community and our region can provide the type of staff that they need to continue to lead auto manufacturing across the nation. So I just wanted to officially thank Toyota for that type of investment, and it's exciting. Any comments from the court? All right. Rick?
Not on that.
All right. Next, I'd like to publicly announce the cybersecurity grant. I shared that with you all, and I said we're going to do a press release. I need help from Chip there. But this is a huge award for us. It is $446,900 that will add much needed technology and support, and it's also continuing our relationship with Madison County and the data center. So this is very exciting, and it's going to make our infrastructure safer, and I'm excited and proud of it. Kudos and thanks to Chip, Michelle, the 13 Layers team that helped with this. So any questions or comments about that? We have a meeting, the grant meeting that'll come up, so we can't spend anything until that meeting's done, but then we can, it's a reimbursement grant. We'll have to spend the dollars, but then it'll come back to us. Any questions or comments on that? It's very exciting. The next item I'd like to bring to your consideration is what I shared. Cam and I drafted a resolution after I'd met with President Rosemary Allen a couple times in the last couple weeks and discussing Georgetown College and their impact on post-secondary educational opportunities in our community in the Legacy and Legends scholarship program. The request from the college was, is there any way that the fiscal court and the city, this is a consideration with the city as well, but specifically addressing us, is there any way that we could support that endeavor, and then what they do for our community, providing that post-secondary education, and it's really vital, those opportunities that those students get. From what I understand, the documentation that I've gotten, there's over 200 students from Scott County at Georgetown College that are going tuition free, and the value of that grant and aid is around $10.8 million this year alone. So Georgetown College is a significant member of our community. It's kind of like part of the fabric of our community. And Cam's done some research, and the best way for us to be able to support this is through an agreement with the college to provide these services to the community. So Cam has this drafted. We've shared. I'm going to let Cam read the draft, and then we'll have discussion and conversation.
All right, thanks, Judge. Scott County Fiscal Court Resolution Number 24-06, resolution authorizing the Scott County Fiscal Court to enter into an agreement with Georgetown College to provide post-secondary educational opportunities to Scott County residents. Whereas Georgetown College has provided post-secondary educational opportunities to Scott County residents for 195 years, and whereas the need for post-secondary educational programs in Scott County is significant, and whereas communities that have local post-secondary educational and training programs are more likely to retain and attract local workforce talent to support the need for qualified workers for local careers and jobs, and whereas Georgetown College has established the Legacy and Legends Scholarship Program for qualified Scott County residents that provides full tuition costs of students, and whereas the total Legacy and Legends aid awarded to Scott County students in 2023-2024 alone was $10,048,431, and whereas over $30 million has been allocated to 407 individual Scott County students who have received the Legends and Legacy Scholarship for some portion of their academic career. And whereas pursuant to KRS 67.083, Section 3Q, the Fiscal Court has the power to appropriate funds and to cooperate with private agencies for the provision of public services, including educational services. And whereas pursuant to KRS 67.083-3X, the Fiscal Court has the power to appropriate funds for the promotion of economic development of the county, directly or in cooperation with private agencies. And whereas Scott County has 2 higher education institutions and the Scott County Fiscal Court desire to support both institutions equally in light of the enormous educational, economic, and cultural benefit they provide to Scott County residents. And whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court has previously allocated $250,000 to Bluegrass Community and Technical College, BCTC, for the use of a dual credit scholarship to benefit Scott County students, and this agreement will support students attending Scott County's other higher education institution, Georgetown College. And whereas this agreement would support the Legacy and Legends Scholarship for Scott County students at Georgetown College, Now therefore be it resolved this 9th day of January 2024 by the Scott County Fiscal Court. The Scott County Fiscal Court will allocate $250,000 for the Legacy and Legend Scholarship Program to benefit qualified Scott County residents. The Scott County Fiscal Court will enter into an agreement with Georgetown College whereby the funds allocated herein will be used to provide full tuition costs to qualified Scott County residents. This allocation is made for the purpose of providing educational services to Scott County residents, which positively impacts the educational and economic opportunities of Scott County residents. This allocation of funds is subject to Georgetown College maintaining full accreditation with the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools and is subject to any contravening legal authority. Approved this 9th day, February 2024.
Questions, comments?
Rick
Costello.
This scholarship, is that just for the tuition, or is that housing?
It covers their tuition.
Yeah, I
100%.
separated that out.
It's similar to what we did with BCTCS earlier. Yeah.
I believe so.
Very
That's just a
similar,
one time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, my understanding that the Legacy and Legends scholarship will, right now they have planned to sunset that through 29. It'll be active through 29. But in my opinion, it is very wise for us to try to, how else can we help, look at supporting the college, because they are a major economic. They have a major economic impact on our community, and if you just start to think about, you have 1,200 students over there. They eat in our restaurants. They go to the grocery. They buy gas. Their parents come to visit, get a hotel, all those things. And then the hope is that they hang around here and they take a good paying job and become, part of our community. So, this is a one time, but Rob, I'm sure that the need won't go away. And
would they
how
just
else?
come back? I guess they could just come back each year and ask the same thing. We just kind of.
But this is just one time right now, and I am sure that they'll ask for us to continue to look how we can support, and that's there's other ways to support them as well. So we'll look at that. But David Livingston,
Make a motion.
Second. Any other questions or comments?
Just one.
First.
David, second by Dwayne. Any other questions or comments? Rick Costello.
Just to go along with what Chad said, I think my memory is it's very similar to what we did with BCTC, and their target was the same, Scott County students.
Yeah.
And in fact, they were even able to do some, while they were still a junior or a senior.
That's right.
Take some classes.
Yeah,
at
they
BC.
do
I don't know if
credit.
that's going to be.
That
I
do
don't know if
credit.
that's offered here, but right. But anyhow,
I mean, you
I
could
think
probably
it's.
make that part of the agreement, Rick. To do
You
that.
mean to do
They're doing
the?
a significant thing already. I don't know that you need. I don't know that I don't need
No,
them to do it.
I don't
mean,
either. No, I don't
That's
either.
right.
No, I'm just saying, in my view, looking at both of those, we're doing a very similar thing for Georgetown College that we did for BCTC. They got a little bit different target, but still are both beneficial to our community.
No,
They've been doing it for several years. I can't remember exactly what year it started.
Yeah.
It's been going on for several years.
So we've got a motion, we've got a second. Any other question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, want to talk to you about shared last week during our work session proposal to recycle the gate that we had at Betsy Way at the dog park entrance and use it at Lyle Road. And I shared that proposal from Overhead Door. JR had been working on it, and it was for $6,355 to really connect that existing gate that we have, the opener and such, and it'll be placed on that Lyle Road side, and then it'll be set to open it at dawn and close at dusk, and just makes the whole campus safer and controls access a little bit. questions or comments?
Motion. You need a motion?
Could we not put openers on the gates that are there now, or would
No,
that be?
those things.
They just don't move very
They
well.
don't move.
Okay.
They're huge.
Timey.
I was gonna say, it's probably weighing 10,000 pounds.
Get a guy that
So-
just sits out there.
The thing that I'm going to bring to y'all is possibly looking at surplusing those gates because
Oh, I agree.
we think those gates are probably, those ornamental gates are probably very valuable.
Yeah.
I don't know what to put a dollar figure on them, how we do that, but
Well, you'd put them out, if you surplus them, you'd put them out and let people bid on
yeah.
them.
Second. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item I have here in new business is I shared via email that the traffic light that has been installed at Lusby Path, that the city has committed $75,000 towards that project, that traffic light, and the request in support of the hospital medical office building project, would the county consider a $75,000 commitment to supporting that traffic light, for the installation of that traffic light? It's already been put in, but the total cost was like 180 some thousand, but their ask is for 75 from us and 75 from the city. The city's already allocated that budget. We didn't allocate it in this budget. What was mentioned to me is that we could approve this and put it in next year's budget and pay it after July 1. I think I had feedback from one magistrate said that would be their preference if the court wanted to approve this. I would recommend doing this. There is precedent. We've done it at the Dairy Queen Kmart intersection, and then we've also assisted with the right-in, right-out at Walmart there on Cherry Blossom for the cost of that.
So who did you say has initially put this stoplight in? Because it's up and working.
The hospital project, it was a requirement to get the hospital.
Got you. So a comment along with that is that light was needed long before this project.
Yeah.
And so, in my view, I'll make the motion, because in my view, this helps our community more than just that new property or building and that complex there. This was a long time needed.
So
Can I make?
So we got a motion.
I'll second it, but I got a question. Do we actually need to vote on it today, because it's going to be put in next year's budget?
I would like to go on and approve it. Now, here is one caveat. Michelle is at training for budget training. She's in Frankfurt. She couldn't be here, but because of the size of the grant that we received on the cybersecurity, we're going to have to amend the budget. And then with that, with the Georgetown College approval today, that will go in that amendment. There's no reason that we can't just put this in next year's budget, but I just wanted to be clear, we are going to have to amend the budget for those two items. There's no reason not to put it into next year's and do it, but I wanted everybody to know what we were doing. So I have a motion,
Yes.
and I have a second. Is that for approving that expenditure out of next year's budget?
Correct.
All right. Any
Committing
other
to it
questions?
and approving it.
Yes. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Just want to share some more good news. As part of our regional project, we approved due diligence on the site with L.E. Gregg. Well, KU has awarded us $50,000 towards that due diligence. So that will knock off that cost. I just wanted to share that with you. And then I do want to ask for your approval. The city, Jared sat in with the city and reviewed the housing needs assessment RFPs. The recommended firm that is going to do this, their cost is right under $50,000. My understanding from a Scott United Economic Development meeting I'm at yesterday, that they're going to recommend to the full board to pay for a third of it. The city's going to recommend for a third of it. They're asking us to pay for a third of that. I would recommend doing that. What questions does anyone have?
What is it exactly?
It's the housing needs assessment that we talked about from Candace for affordable housing. And here is the, let me just share you the deliverables. project kickoff, existing material review, demographic and economic baseline analysis. So they're going to look at all our housing demographics and economic baseline just for our community at depth. They're going to do a housing market analysis, then they're going to do an affordability analysis, and then they're also going to look at housing instability and homelessness, what level that is, and then they're going to do some employer and community surveys trying to get more data, and then they're going to give us housing goals and strategies to meet those deficits. So I think it's pretty in-depth, and I think it's needed to help us be able to go after affordable housing options. And I think I mentioned what Transylvania had, they didn't donate it, but they sold it at less than market, 12.5 acres, and a group of bankers have gone in and formed a coalition to provide the funding. Now they're going to try to find a developer that will do the needed types of housing that they have identified, and then the developer will pay back to the bank the cost, the original cost of the land purchase. That's just kind of like a strategy, but this, in my mind, really gives us the data and then makes recommendations to move forward. Questions or comments? And it's 1/3 of the 49,000. Would there be a motion?
16, about 16 plus or
Yeah.
minus.
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Jones. Second from Mr. Pratt. Any other questions or comments? Any? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And then, JR, we got this week coming, roof work.
Yes.
JR's been coordinating with back construction, and we're going to do some roof work here, so just wanted you to know if you saw a big lift out front, there will be a lift this week. And then tomorrow morning, there's a legislative breakfast that many of you have signed up to attend. Where is that at, you all?
Extension office.
Is it at the extension office?
Yeah.
And at 9 a.m.?
I think 8:30.
8:30? 8:30, all right. I'm glad I brought it up. Is there any other new business? Mr. Livingston.
I forgot to tell you about this. So, this is, I don't know if anybody knows, but at the Governor's Local Issues Conference last year, I got choked on a piece of steak and almost died, legitimately. So, I wanted to recognize Magistrate Ryan Pratt because Magistrate Ryan Pratt is the one who did the Heimlich maneuver to essentially save my life. So I'll read this real quick. So it says, "To all whom these presents shall come, greeting, know ye that Ryan Pratt, Scott County Magistrate, 6th District, is recognized for his heroic and life-saving action on August 16, 2023. Inasmuch as his response was immediate, his knowledge impeccable, and his ability indisputable, Magistrate Ryan Pratt's role in the events of that evening were instrumental towards saving my life. I offer Ryan Pratt, on behalf of myself, my 3 daughters, Marin, Ryan, Mara, my wife Nicole, and my family and friends, my deepest and most heartfelt gratitude and appreciation. In testimony whereof I have caused these letters to be made patent, done at Scott County the 31st day of January in the year of our Lord 2024, and in the 230th year of Scott County." So, thank you. Found a misspelling, so you don't get this.
Any other new business? Any other questions or comments from anyone in our audience?
Judge?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a few things?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I just was wondering if Cam, was that update on the bluegrass water, was their deadline, the commission?
The 13th.
Yeah.
So that's upcoming.
That is upcoming, yes, sir.
So you still haven't heard anything prior
Not
to?
since you all asked, and the email
Right.
was sent whenever that, like a week or two ago. But yeah, hopefully we'll hear something soon on that.
Because I think
it's by they have a deadline.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. I thought that's what the response was. I just wanted to double check because I've had many calls and a lot of flurry. And thanks, Chad, for your help in some of that too. I know you've gotten some too. Another one was the lawsuit with WSB. Is that still where they've appealed that, or they took it back to the original judge?
I'm still named individually, and I carry that with a badge of honor.
As far as I know, I haven't seen any action on that one.
That's
We'll
been
try
a
to get you
while
an
too,
update.
hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
And Rick, that's the federal piece. Right?
it is. I think that was $100 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Just pocket change.
Just pocket change.
For some people.
We'll try to get an update for the court on that.
Yeah. And I want to mention one other thing about the net device. I know they've sent some paperwork back, and I was going to ask Cam to take another look at that or give us a little guidance. Not tonight, today, but I don't know if that got passed around. Probably you already have to the rest of the court. But I wanted to thank you guys too as well for voting to partner with the net device folks at our last meeting. But also I want to share a little information. I saw this yesterday morning on the news. Every morning before I leave the house, I wait on the weather because I'm still working outside. But there were over 1,800. The news said yesterday morning they were at a place called DV8 Kitchen.
DV8 Kitchen.
Yeah, and so DV8 Kitchen on their own they've been running some kind of program about Narcan and training, and so in that report on Channel 18 yesterday morning, they also spit out these statistics that there were over 1,800 overdose deaths in Kentucky. Did I say that right? In 2023. That's in Kentucky. And you know, the stats nationwide, I haven't seen the 2023 stats nationwide, but 20, 21, and 22, they were over 100,000 overdose deaths. All three of those years, each year, there were over 100,000. And the reason I bring it up is I see this net device. We've met people here in person. I've known people in person that I met years ago that were treated, and they told us that when they were in a court, Mr. LaPalme did, that when he was asked, he said that they had treated in the last 10 or 12 years 400 to 500 people. And so, I mean, it's changing those people's lives. And when I watched that report and those folks are passing out the Narcan and the training, which is a good thing because I think those numbers of overdose deaths, and maybe Chris Runyon, if you want to, can comment. I mean, we've had, in 2023, we had several overdose deaths, but we've also, when you make your runs, y'all use, some people get 2 or 3. If it weren't for Narcan, there's no telling what the numbers would be. And I'm just putting all that together with this net device. In 5 to 7 days, it changes a person's world and gives them an opportunity. They're out of it. Now, can they go back? Yeah, but that would be a dumb decision, but they could.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just wanted to add, Rick, in addition to us handing out Narcan on scene of overdoses, we do follow-ups with our community paramedic now. So
Brandon Rimley is developing relationships, trying to connect services, and I think that piece is as important a thing as we do.
I agree, and in fact, we learned also, talking to the net device people several months ago, that would be the unique partnership that would point people right to if they can get this next study up and running. Those people would be well, it's my words, not theirs, but kind of almost first in line because you've got that relationship with them.
Right.
So anyhow, that's it. Thanks.
Anything else? Would there be a motion to adjourn? Motion. Second, David Livingston. All those in favor? We are adjourned.
You can see the smoke like coming up.